Let me go back to the Torah, the first 5 books of either the Hebrew Bible or the Christian Bible, the Torah. The 5th book, I'll start with that one, the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is where we get programmatically declared, look at chapter 28, for example, if you obey the Lord your God, all will be well with you. All will be well in this world, by the way. There's no afterlife yet. If you obey the Lord your God, you will be prosperous. You will be fertile in your family, in your fields, in your animals, and your enemies will flee before you 7 ways. Wow, that's in this world. That's kind of checkable, you know. If we obey God, everything will go well. Prosperity, fertility, and victory. Conversely, if you disobey God, infertile, no prosperity, and you will flee 7 ways before your enemy. Wow. That's pretty perfect. That's almost as if our Constitution guaranteed us, if you do this, everything will be well. If you don't do this. So that's the book of Deuteronomy. It's the basis for all the history that follows. And it is the basis, of course, when this life, sanctions in this life breaks down, that we simply take Deuteronomy into the next life with heaven and hell, and off we go. Now, there is evidence in the Old Testament, forget for the moment anything about the New Testament, that this lovely scenario just ain't working. And this is the scenario today that somebody asks after a terrible tragedy, and there's too many of them on the news at the moment for me even to use one, what did we do to deserve this? That's Deuteronomic thinking. What did we do to deserve this? We're being punished. That's the book of Deuteronomy. Now, you mentioned an example. Supposing, for example, you have a very evil king. Now, evil, according to the book of Deuteronomy, that is, they maybe allow other gods besides their own God, makes deals with the countries round about. What about Manasseh? He's considered about as bad a guy as you have in the Old Testament as for kings that everyone knows about. And he lives longer than David. I mean, reigns longer than David. I've forgotten, 40 years or something. How can an evil king reign longer even than David when Deuteronomy says, if you're evil, you get punished. If you're good, you get rewarded. Okay, so Manasseh doesn't work on the level of negative sanctions, punishments. And then we have Josiah, one of the best kings in the Bible. He's up there with David. And King Necho of Egypt is coming through him, coming through Israel, heading north for the tottering empire. And he's not attacking Israel. He's just coming through. Excuse me, I'm taking my army through. It's probably a bit bad for your crops and things, but I'm coming through. And Josiah decides to go out and oppose him. And he's killed. So now, if you're reading the books of Kings, and you should, you find a good king who dies too young, too soon into his reign, and a bad king who dies too late. So your lovely Deuteronomic theology has 2 major objections. Now, after the exile, we are rewriting the books of Kings in what we now call the books of Chronicles. We are doing what we call today a cleanup job. We are controlling the narrative, as we say today. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to say when we come to Josiah that he was told not to go out against Necho because Necho was on a mission for God. You can actually read Chronicles following line by line from Kings, and then all of a sudden you get this new little piece inserted, redacted is the polite term for it, and it says that Josiah disobeyed God, that's why he got killed. our theology works. Comes to Manasseh. We have to clean up Manasseh. So we have the book of Kings, the book of Chronicles, you watch the story going down. All of a sudden, Manasseh is taken away to Babylon. If he was taken away by the Assyrians, wouldn't he be taken to Ashur or Nineveh or Khorsabad or one of the Assyrian cities? Well, okay, forget it. He goes off to Babylon, repents, and God forgives him, and he's home in 4 verses. I think about 4 verses, we cleaned them up. Now, when I say this, I don't want to sound too much like a smart aleck. I understand what's going on. These people have gone through the Babylonian exile. They're coming back under Persian sponsorship. They've been told to get their country back on its feet again. They're cleaning up their stories. And I understand what they're doing. And if I was there with them, I probably would be helping, because that's what scholars do, to do what's going on at the moment. So I understand it. But these are warnings that this story was not working. And when history and theology don't agree, do you change the history, as we did here with Manasseh and Josiah, or do you change your theology? And of course, the proof that they didn't change their theology is the book of Job. The book of Job disqualifies the book of Deuteronomy. It says it just doesn't work. Here is the holiest person that ever lived. The holiest person that ever, God says it, the holiest person that ever lives, and this person is suffering more than anyone could even imagine. And it has nothing to do with punishment. It has to do with a sort of a contest between God and a person called the Satan, who is like the attorney general in heaven. I think that would be his job. It's a contest between God saying this is the holiest person that ever lived, and the attorney general, Mr. Satan, saying, yeah, he's just in it for the goodies. He's read the book of Deuteronomy. He knows to be a good guy, and he got all the goodies. So now take all the goodies away from him and watch him curse you. So God's honor is at stake in this story. And as we know, Job will not curse God. He will not curse God. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't make any sense. So Job is the great challenge to the book of Deuteronomy. And that's where the poet Frost talks about him stultifying. He says Job stultified the Deuteronomist. Stultus is the Latin word for stupid. It stupefied the Deuteronomy. It proves that Deuteronomy just doesn't work. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's not right.